only way you fight the arrogance of secret intelligence agencies and people who do this is with mass organization, and it's got to start with mass education.
Well, there's got to be more organizations too, not just even. You say mass; those are easy to infiltrate with the tools the enemy's developed. What about a general manifesto of liberty and thousands of groups then joining together spontaneously in what the enemy is most worried about in their own military projections, and that is flash mobs?
Well, a united front. In other words, a united, because right now we don't have such an umbrella organization, so we'd have to, the only thing we could do right now that would be realistic is to say, let's have a united front. I've talked about calling something like Americans Against Fascism. I believe this is an anti-fascist country. I think that's the one thing we can still say about the U.S. The American people are opposed to fascism. And the stuff with Obama, it comes from the crimes of Bush, Cheney, and the neocons. A lot of people thought they were voting against the devil they knew. Unfortunately, they didn't know the devil they were getting, who is several circles deeper in the inferno than Bush and Cheney. Right? He comes from the pretty much, but he's not the bottom. He's not quite the bottom still. There's something even worse than Obama coming from the wings. But a lot of people thought they were voting against that, and of course, a lot of people are voting because they see a depression. And they say, well, let's get these reactionary Republicans out of there, and let's get a Democrat. And maybe. But
meanwhile, the enemy had already seen that people were going to rebel after 8 years of this. So years ago, they had groomed and prepared this foundation front with all of these Stalin-esque and Lenin-esque cover points, when really he's a corporatist to the core.
Right, and he's a Mussolini, and certainly he does have these overtones of Soviet-style totalitarianism, beyond any doubt. But the ultimate
they're
thing
borrowing from every, the most horrible pieces from every machine of dehumanization and combining in here.
It's a cookbook, and that's the cookbook of the CIA people power coup or color revolution. It's the Kiev 2004 cookbook. It's the Tiflis, Georgia 2003-2004 cookbook. They've tried it someplace else.
They've even tried in north of Israel, in Lebanon, to come in with these color revolutions, but it seems like the color revolutions are blowing up on every front.
Yeah, but see, that was the Lebanon one is interesting, because there they tried to do the Cedars Revolution with the rich Christian Maronites and so forth, and they ran right up against, in this case, a real mass organization.
Hezbollah.
Now, you can say what you want about Hezbollah, right? You wouldn't want to endorse everything they do, but that is an authentic mass organization, and they stopped it cold. And they showed that they could put more people into the streets than the hysterical mass media and the U.S. Embassy and all their paid shills. So that's a real good example. I mean, you don't, again, we don't want to found a Hezbollah here, but
no,
a mass organization,
yeah.
Exactly, a mass organization stops them. Right now, we don't have it. So what we've got to do is, during the phase that we're in now, up until January 20th, the main thing, I think, is to educate people, right, to denounce these people as they come forward, right? Oh, Robert Gates, who's he? Well, that's Zbigniew Brzezinski's office boy from 1977 to 1979. That's a guy who was up to his neck in the October surprise, up to his neck in Iran-Contra. He's the founder of Al-Qaeda. The founder of Al-Qaeda, Robert Gates, is getting continuity at the Pentagon.
Yeah, okay, well, that's a great doorway into, let's talk about the founder of Al-Qaeda and then dovetail into Mumbai. Because, all weekend we're going to be here talking to you about Obama himself for the film. But let's cover Mumbai, because I don't know your view on that yet, but I bet I can guess. We'll be right back. All right, we are back live. Here is the cover to Webster Tarpley's Japanese edition of Obama the Postmodern Coup. And here is the cover to another version of this. Which one is this? German? So this is Deutsch. And we've got one of his books sold at Infowars.com. He's got two books on this subject. Okay, and before we leave, we'll plug that, Webster. Webster, let's continue right now with where we'd gotten to with what Al-Qaeda is, how it was created, how the establishment created radicalized Muslim groups that were already there, but funded them, expanded them, to run around the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. This just didn't begin with Brzezinski, to menace governments that the establishment didn't like. And then after they let the extremist Muslims take over, then the West has a new enemy and recycles that. But the point of Robert Gates, the Secretary of Defense that Obama has said he's keeping over, being literally the Brzezinski man at the Al-Qaeda desk with its founding, its organization in the late 1970s.
I think Gates sets the stage from a couple of points of view. Last Wednesday, I got up in the morning, go outside, get the Washington Post. Gates will stay at the Pentagon. Reading this thing in the afternoon, reports coming in, Mumbai terrorism. So the same day that the world learned in the papers that Obama had essentially accepted the dictation of his handlers to keep Gates at the Pentagon, throw out all this stuff about hope and change, no more change. Gates stays at the Pentagon. Now, Robert Gates, who is this person? Robert Gates, first of all, was, as Brzezinski says, from 1977 to 1979-80, when Brzezinski came to the National Security Council of the Jimmy Carter Trilateral Administration every morning, the first person he saw in the morning was Robert Gates, and the last person he saw in the evening when he left was Robert Gates. So Robert Gates was his right-hand man, his girl Friday, his office boy.
His
right?
gopher, his minion.
Yeah.
And we see this with these apprentices, with these Sith lords, just like Karkare is Paulson's long-term servant and minion, now handing out the 8.4 trill.
Right. So Gates is a clone of Zbigniew Brzezinski. They say he's a Republican. This doesn't matter at all. His career,
former CIA director.
Yeah,
also,
we'll get to it. We're going to get to it.
Yeah.
His career was sponsored by Zbigniew Brzezinski. Now, recently, Gates signaled to all of us what he's going to do, and he gave a speech. I don't know if you saw this. It's the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace.
Yes.
With Jessica Matthews.
The real think tank that really makes a lot of policy.
Yeah, it's a pretty high-level one. It's older. Jessica Matthews, of course, this is the daughter of Barbara Tuchman. This is the daughter of Kuhn Loeb, Warburg, all this stuff.
The attempted Nazi coup in the 30s.
Right, but she's there, and Gates is in a mood of nostalgia, and he says, "Hey, Jessica," speaking to a gathering at the Carnegie Endowment. He says, "Jessica, do you remember when both of us worked for Zbigniew Brzezinski at the National Security Council, and we got this invitation to go to Algiers in Algeria on April 1st, I believe it was, of 1978, because that was the National Day, and there was an opportunity to meet with the Iranian leadership. In other words, the Khomeiniacs, the Khomeini guys, the Khomeini Prime Minister, the Khomeini Defense Minister, and the Khomeini Foreign Minister. That guy was Yazdi. He was the most important of these. And he says, Jessica, you remember how Zbigniew gave a speech, and he laid it all out for the Iranians, and he said to them in a private meeting, look, Iranians...
Stay there. We've got a break. Back
in
70 seconds with this riveting and vital information. We'll be right back.
Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
We are back live. We have Webster Tarpley in studio with us. We're getting into right now the real Obama administration, the real players and individuals that he is putting in place, and if it is possible, it's an even more cold-blooded, wicked group of Anglo-American oligarchs, but now with left cover. And we were getting into just one person of countless, Robert Gates, that he is bringing in to continue on as Secretary of Defense, meeting with the Khomeiniacs in '78, right as they're being about to be installed there in Iran. So let's continue with the founding of Al-Qaeda, and then that will be a perfect segue into Mumbai that just happened in India.
Right. So Gates is a clone of Brzezinski. He was his office boy at the National Security Council, 77 to 79. And then you get Brzezinski coming out with this proposition that Islamic fundamentalism is the greatest bulwark against Soviet communism and Soviet imperialism. So Brzezinski plays the Islamic fundamentalist card with a vengeance. Brzezinski